explosive diarrhea.
You ate something, Beth?
Uh, yeah, well, anyway, Roland.
Roland, are we recording already?
Yeah, you know it. So
Well, yeah.
Roland is okay. So we've talked about it a little before. It's your other group you're playing drums in, and you guys are almost finished with the new album, right?
It's actually finished. Joe has the master files, and he's supposedly talking to label guys or people that he knows who might be able to get the record released under a label for promotional reasons. So
Great,
that's where we're at now.
very cool. We'll talk about that. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the man behind the band, the man behind the name, because I know him well. We knew him before your guys knew him, I think.
Yes, that is true. We did know him from way back.
And I got a couple stories. Okay, first, Shroom camping.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the story is pretty self-contained. And let me be the first to say, Keith did not partake, of course. We all probably could guess that. And now, I hate shrooming too. You know what?
Of course.
No, I don't like shrooming either. I really don't. I've never had a good shroom experience. Acid, on the other hand, best ever. Best in the world. Not anymore. I wouldn't do it now. I've had my time, but never had a problem on acid. Shrooms, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a skinny motherfucker. I literally just feel poisoned. And you know when your foot falls asleep?
Yeah.
Imagine that from head to toe.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Fuck no. And I'd just be standing there going, oh, stop. But okay. So here's how it went down. This must have been what, 2005, 6 or something?
It was a long time ago.
Ah, man, maybe 2004. I don't even want to try to guess the year. A long time ago. And I spent some time in Florida with my family because it was just so hard to live in California financially.
Oh, sure.
I was between girlfriends or homeless, however you want to look at it. And so I was in a tough spot. But the one thing I did do when I moved to Florida from California, of course, everybody in Solar Thunder, everybody in the band was like, what the fuck, you're leaving? But I bought a round trip ticket saying, don't worry, I will be back for what we had scheduled at the time was our biggest show to date, opening for Sever Saver and Deeds of Flesh. And I said I would not miss that show, guys. So I basically went to just put my feelers out in Florida to see if I could anchor myself. You know, my sister let me stay with her. But I was too young at the time to even think about anything but the band. That was my whole life. So I was miserable the whole time in Florida. You know, I was very glad to be with my family, but I just couldn't wait to get back. I just knew I wasn't ready to leave the city. No way. And
yeah.
But the agreement to come back was that Roland, who I met in a video store. That's how he got intertwined with all of our lives. Is he worked at my same video store, Monster Video in Monterey, and he was a guitar player. He ended up wanting to just be in an active band, so he was our bass player for about a year. But he basically agreed. All right, Chaz, you can get out of Florida. I'll let you stay with me, and you can figure shit out in Monterey just to get your ass back to California. And I was willing just to get me out of Florida. And I was able to live with Roland and sleep under his kitchen table. And I did that for a while just so that I could be back with the band. So anyway, the story goes, I get off of the plane from Florida, thrilled to be back in California soil. And first thing happens, I go to baggage claim and they lost my luggage. They're like, I'm sorry, your suitcase is in Chicago. I'm like, good. But I don't even care because I walk outside and I'm greeted by my whole band. All you guys are there. Fucking
Yeah.
Brian Kinney, you, Roland, and Micah. What up? And I was like, what the fuck's up? What the hell's happening? And they're like, we're about to go camping with Impaled and a couple other bands. And all the vans were like waiting. Everybody was waiting just as a pit stop to pick me up from the airport to go on this huge band camping trip. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's fucking go. And accompanying this camping trip also was Metal Chef.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This fucking guy. What was his name?
I don't remember, just Metal Chef. He was a cool guy, though.
He was a cool guy. I forgot his name, but he was known as Metal Chef. You pay him a little bit on tour, and he makes some really fucking good shit because he went to culinary school. And you're not, you don't have to eat fucking McDonald's on the road all day. But he made some like delicious pancakes with peach, or no, it was buffalo burgers with peach wedges in it and all kinds of crazy shit. Anyway, really good stuff. So we're at this campsite. Bunch of bands, bunch of chicks, and you guys are there. It was just amazing, dude. A great experience. Then,
yeah, I never forget it.
Yep. Then there's this talk that starts going around the little campsite about a giant bag of mushrooms. And I'm like, okay. So basically it went down the line. They came up to me, hey, you down? I'm like, no thanks. It went to Brian Kinney, no thanks. To Roland, no thanks. Down to Micah, no thanks. And then to Keith, of course, no thanks. 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, 10, 15 minutes later, we're passing around the acoustic guitar and shit. And suddenly Roland comes up to me and he's like kind of looking like, hey man, I ate some. I was like, oh fuck, dude. Oh no, here we go. And he's like, so you want it? No thanks. Brian Kinney, no thanks. Micah, no thanks. Of course, Keith, no thanks. 10, 15 more minutes pass. I look over at Micah. He's like, yeah, dude, you want it. So he ate some. And he's trying to convince me, come on, just eat a little. I'm like, dude, no thanks. Brian Kinney, no thanks. Keith, of course, no thanks. 10, 15 more pass. And I'm walking around. I turn my head and I look, and it's Brian Kinney standing in front of me, not saying anything, just with a goofy smile and a giant bag with mushrooms pushing him forward, just like, and he's chewing. And I'm like, no, oh, all right. So, of course, Keith said, no thanks. But I think Keith probably had the worst trip than any of us because he had to deal with all of us sober.
Oh, it was fine. I was worried about Roland for a minute, but
that was, dude. So everything I think's going okay. I can already feel my body shutting down. I don't like this feeling, but I'm using like the acoustic guitar as sort of my anchor to reality. And I'm playing it like fucking trying to kumbaya. And every now and then I look at Micah, he's on my side. And Micah had his hands in his pockets, shrooming balls, trying to like contain himself with all this chaos going around. And Roland at one point just stormed out into the dark woods.
Mm-hmm.
And had this look on his face, just like, oh, I'm cool. And just fucking went into the darkness. And we were like, what the hell, dude? There's other campsites down there. I hope he's not fucking with anybody. And yeah, we got kind of worried. And I keep just turning back and, playing guitar like fucking ooh la la golly. And Micah finally he got so weirded out by me. I turned to talk to him with the guitar and he's just gone. He left into the tent to get away from me. And then you were like calling into the black woods, like just Roland.
That's right.
Over and over. I'm like, dude, just forget it. And then he does finally come stumbling out, storming toward the campsite out of the woods. I don't know what he just saw. He looked like he saw a fucking Blair Witch. And he's walking fucking through like a stampede on mushrooms. And he just walked through Brian Kinney's tent like it was bushes. Just walked through it, like across it. And you just hear Brian's loud voice thundering through the campsite. Dude, you guys get 0 camping points.
That's right. And
Oh my God.
I remember that's when Brian was still dating Claudia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
before they got married, and they were messing around in that tent. I could hear them all night. It's kind of annoying.
we might edit that out
Oh,
of our memories in general. Uh,
oh.
so, dude, weird night. It did finally end, but I remember the morning, dude. Fantastic trip all around, but the morning especially, because this is what I woke up to. And honestly, it was a funny, strange, wonderful, warm moment. This girl, God, what the fuck? What was her name? So fucking sexy. It was what was Jasper's old band called?
It was Forrest Day's girlfriend before they dated.
It was Forrest Day's girlfriend, but before, yeah, what's her name?
I don't
Oh,
remember.
not important. So goddamn sexy. And I woke up in the tent and my eyes are open and she's straddling me in a sleeping bag, handing me a green fucking bowl to spark. And that's how I wake up. And I look over and Roland has got some girl on top of him. I mean, we're not doing anything. It was just a friendly, cozy, cuddle type wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking up and he has a girl too next to him. And I'm looking and it was the most like bisexual moment of my life. I'm staring into Roland's eyes, just thinking, I love you. Like my you, my band. I love my band. I love this morning right now. It was just incredible.
That's a great story.
It was an incredible night. And welcome home.
Yes, dude.
But go ahead.
Roland's just a wild card, man. He's always been crazy. Even when he moved, when he left the band, he moved to the city, and then I reconnected with him. I forget even how, but he was like, "Dude, you want to start like a music project?" And I was like, "Sure." And initially it was like, because Roland's always he's always very like, he's got all these ideas, but he doesn't know what to do with them. So he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be like you on drums and then me on guitar and keyboard." And I was like, "Okay, sure, that sounds like fun."
At the
And so
same time.
we go to this rehearsal space and we like, well, first we mess around with instruments at his house, and then we go to the rehearsal space, and he's like, I think we rehearsed once, just basically again, just sort of screw around. He had a couple riffs in his mind, and I would come up with drums. And then like the second rehearsal, he's like, "So yeah, these two other guys are going to be part of the band." And I was like, "Okay," like just out of nowhere. And it was Casey and Joe, and because he had known them while he was living in the city, and I was still living down in Monterey. And then it became Rappers was the name of the band at the time. And
That's
yeah, and then it was me, Roland, Casey, and Joe, and then we play a bunch of shows, and then eventually Roland decides, he's like, this band is too democratic for me. I want to just do my own thing, because he's a very flighty person.
what did he mean by that? Too democratic, as in everybody gets to have a say or something?
Well, we were all, after a year or so, we wrote like a good handful of songs together, and we really enjoyed them. But it was a very organic process where all of us would come up with ideas, and we would try things out and they wouldn't work, and we would try things out and they would work. But the songs were written by all four of us. There was no single song that was written by one person. It was all the songs were written by all of us. Each song was like a combination of riffs that I came up with, and Roland and Casey and Joe. And I guess Roland at the even though he enjoyed it, I think he wanted to just be in. He wanted to be fully creatively in charge of the project,
He
and
wanted the band to have to be his name and have his name all over it.
basically creatively speaking, yeah. But and so he decided, and he also, like I said, aside from that, I think he was just Roland goes through these stages where he's like into something and then he's over it, and he's into something else and he's over it, which I've noticed over the years. And he he was just over. He was like, "Yeah, I'm done." But we stayed friends, of course. He just was like, "Yeah, I'm not feeling it anymore." So it left me, Casey, and Joe just like sitting there because he remember we had dinner at this like restaurant in the city, which is where he told us, and then he left, and we're just sitting there like, "Okay, what do we do? Should we like keep on going?" And then we're like, "Yeah, we should because this is fun." And at this point, I was already, I was getting along and basically friends with Casey and Joe at this point. And so we continued to write music, and we eventually recruited Lars, and then it became Roland. We were like, we should change the band name because Roland's gone. And then we thought for a while, we're like, what should we call it? We had this idea, that idea, nothing really stuck. And then one of us, I think it was Joe who came up with the idea. I think it was Casey who came up with, dude, how about Roland? And we all thought about it and sort of laughed, and we're like, we all pause and go, well, let's see how we feel tomorrow. and
It's
then
like, go ahead.
and then the next day, everybody just texts each other like the word Roland, and that was pretty much it.
Nice. Dude, it's like that Simpsons moment when they're trying to name the barbershop quartet and they're like, what do we call ourselves? And somebody goes, how about the B Sharps? And they all laugh. And as soon as the laughter stops, all right, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, that was basically it.
Oh, that's classic.
Mm-hmm.
Has he ever given you guys his blessing? Has he ever heard anything? Do you know?
Oh yeah, he's never come to a show, but he's like, he knew that we kept on going, and I stayed in touch with him, and he thought it was hilarious that we named the band after him. He
Oh,
was,
I'm sure he loved that. That's because he is ironic like that. He gets that kind of shit.
yeah, and he has a bit of an ego, so he thinks it's cool in general. He's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, he was like, that's yeah, it's he like tells other people, oh yeah, this band that I was in, they named the band after me, and he laughs and jokes and thinks it's cool. So yeah, he's fine with it.
He was in a band. I don't remember the name of it, but they actually did a lot. He toured a lot with them.
French
Remember
Miami.
that? French Miami. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
We were all happy for him. He could, because the story with us is pretty simple. It happens often. He was a guitarist willing to play bass as a favor, also because he wanted to be in an active band. He couldn't get, it takes a lot to get a band going. I mean, it's nearly fucking impossible.
Yeah.
It's amazing if it ever happens. So we had a band going. We needed it. We did it a whole fucking year without bass because we were tired of waiting. And he was willing to pay bass, but that means he's never really going to be happy. You got to have a bass player. You really do.
Yeah.
You can alternate players and all that, but it's just never going to really fucking work out because they're going to want to go do their own thing eventually. And he did. I remember the way he left our band, Soul Asunder, when he came on as our bass player, he never acquired his own gear. For whatever reason, circumstances as they were, he never got his own bass and he never got his own bass amp. He was borrowing your bass, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then that got stolen out of a car. So then he would literally, it was really bad. Stolen out of your car. And I'm not trying to trash the guy, but this is really shitty. You just can't do this. He used to just show up to gigs and ask any number of bands that would open for us, any one of their bass players, hey man, can I use your bass rig tonight? All right, sure. Since it's already backline, cool. Hey, and you could just go ahead and borrow your bass too. So he would just, and we were not openers anymore. We weren't necessarily fucking a headliner, but in a local spot we were. So most bands would just go, okay, we're really gonna say no. They could say no, but somebody he would get to do it. So we were like, okay, this is getting old. None of us liked that. And then the last draw, I think, was we went to record the EP at Trident, the Soul Asunder EP,
right,
and it was a no call, no show.
That's what it was.
And we were like, what is it? Wait, he worked so hard for a year learning songs. We all had a blast together on stage every time. He was in our first music video, Hate Fueled Anger. all had a blast together. Why would he work all this time and then just not come to the studio session? What do you think was going to happen? We were going to pull a Joe Pesci and Goodfellas, all like walk in behind him in an empty room and him just go, "Oh, no," just shoot him in the back of the head. Dude. So he didn't come to the recording studio, and we were like, all right, I think it's the beginning of the end. We need to find a bass player, which we ended up getting Nate. But still no ill will. I've seen him after that, and we've partied and drank, and he was happier. But that is the thing about Roland as a character. Very interesting guy, very unique. I've never met anyone else like him. He brings out an energy in you that you didn't want to have.
Yeah.
And he talks louder than us all. By us all, I mean all, like out there in podcast land too. Everyone. He talks louder than us all.
Yeah, he loves the. He's a cool guy, but he has these interesting quirks. Like, yeah, when he gets excited, he talks really loud, and you're like, oh my gosh.
He has a vision, and I hope he's still playing music or artistic at all. He should be.
He recently had a. He got married, and I think he works in the trades now. I think actually Nate ran into him at some point when Nate was doing sheet metal.
He works in the trade?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but Nate ran into him on a job site once.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, lots of fun stories with him, man.
Oh,
fuck.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. Yeah, a lot of parties at Brian's old house with Roland.
Roland. All right. So, you got any? What was it like recording Roland's first album, Enter the Ronald?
So the first album was we had come up with this collection of songs that we were really happy with. And Joe actually basically bankrolled the whole situation. He paid for the studio time, but he was about to move to Europe, I think. So he was like, "We got to get this done." And we're like, "Okay." And it was always kind of hard scheduling, even rehearsal with the four of us, because our work schedules were so different. All the other guys in the band are basically married and have these careers and crazy work schedules. So to get together to even rehearse, let alone record an album, was tough. But we got in there and we went to this studio called L Studio, which was run by this guy named Donnie Neuenhaus and by this guy named Phil Manley, who used to be the guitar player for the fucking Champs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
showed us them. He loved them, and I only know all about them because of him. They're classic.
Oh yeah, and so we get in there, and I have my drums. We go in there, and for some reason at the time, the guys thought it would be cool to just track everything, record it live, which I'm not used to doing, but we did it anyway. And we just ran through each song once or twice with everything being recorded, and that was it. And then they would do punch-ins of guitar parts, and it was very rushed. And everything was also put to tape, 2-inch tape, like old school.
Nice.
Because they wanted that sort of vintage sound, I suppose. And I'm happy with the album. Happy with the. What I'm not happy with is the performance. It's very sloppy. There are sections where Joe, he's off, or Lars is off, and even I'm off on a few parts because I didn't play to a click on almost anything, and it was just rushed. But it's a fun album, and those songs are a lot more fun to play live, but we don't really play them anymore. We're kind of focused on the new album stuff now.
All right.
So yeah,
playing to a click. Let's talk about that for a second. So was that a choice because of being kind of under the gun in the timing for studio, or did you just want to try something organic, which is admirable, I think? And did you play to a click on the new album?
I played to a click on the new album, and it took a little bit of convincing because Casey was actually the one who. It was a combination of Casey really wanting the songs to have a natural human feel,
Right.
and also me going like, sure, I'll try it because I don't, in all the other recordings I've been on Ontogeny and Soul Cylinder, I always played it with click, so it's different for me. It worked out okay, but after I listened back, I go, I don't want to do that again. I want things to be tighter. So the second album, a few years later, actually, we're writing all these songs. Joe goes out of town for a while, and he comes back. We play shows here and there. We do a little West Coast tour, and then we have this collection of songs. We decided to record these songs and make a second album. So we debated and discussed a couple different options for engineers and producers. We were thinking about going to the guy that does the Intronaut albums, but he was in LA. And then we were thinking about going to this other guy who was actually our first choice, but he was booked for like 9 months straight, so there was no room for him.
So you guys are willing to spare no expense in order to get a real production, somebody that captured like a legit signed band.
Yes, and so we ended up, I think it was actually Nate who recommended Zach Oren, and I talked to the guys about Zach, and I showed them a bunch of example recordings of albums that this guy's done. He's done a bunch of work with Machine Head. He recorded Machine Head's last 2 albums, I think.
Fucking let freedom ring with a shotgun blast, homie.
Yeah, and so he's like, and he's done tons and tons of death metal albums. And I convinced Joe and Casey. They're like, I was like, we did the analog, loose sort of 2-inch tape, recorded live, like it's the 70s. We did that. Let's do something different this time. Let's make these songs crisper and tighter and bigger sounding.
Okay, let's go back to the click for a second. Just keep that thought in your head. Keep it in place. But this is something just for people that might not understand, like the click track, the metronome. There is a whole process in any kind of band with songs that are progressive, meaning it ain't going to be one tempo or one time signature, even the whole song. They're going to change up. So that takes prepping for every song. You basically have to lay a foundation, an entire click track, like the song length of every single section has got to have its own click. So for example, we'll have one section going kick, 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 kick. Suddenly it'll be like kick, 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 the exact amount. And you got to know. And that's the kind of shit you just want to pull your fucking teeth out while you're doing it. But
yeah,
it's so surgical, and if you got to put in the work to do it right and prep. That way, in tracking, everything should go according to plan. You're always going to have problems. But here's the thing with Keith. You are very unique in this. No one I've ever seen, especially in metal, has done this, where he'll go into a studio and the engineer is like, all right, so where's the guitarist, or do you have a backing track to record the drums to? Because the first thing you're going to record is always drums.
Mm-hmm.
Everything gets recorded on top of that. So traditionally, you have the guitarist come in and he can just plug into a fucking tube amp. Don't worry about sounding good. He can be drunk or half kidding and sloppy, just sort of jamming. But the drummer is recording final takes, but he's just got that guitarist in his headphone, right?
Yes.
Or you have a backing track pre-recorded of all the songs so that the drummer can just follow along and get the tracks in the can. Well, Keith is different. Keith shows up. The engineer's like, "Where's the guitarist?" Keith's like, "Oh, there will be no guitarist." All right. Well, where's the backing track? There shall be no backing track for this. And the engineer's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So, yeah. Oh no, don't worry. I know him. I'm just gonna do. And then he did. He just pushed record, or you had the clicks all prepped, and you played the arrangement. So the engineer is just literally probably thinking, "Y'all are joking, right?" Like Juan, for example, had tried it. I remember him going, Juan saying, "What the fuck are we doing here, folks? You know this is costing you money," and he's just hearing drums blasting around for days, for like model man, for a day.
Yeah.
And then we're all come in like, no, don't worry, man. We don't even have to listen. We know he knows better than us. And then sure as shit, all the drums are tracked to nothing, to just drums pounding. And Juan's like, all right, well, who's the first guitarist? All right, I'll come in. And as soon as I start tracking to Keith's perfect drums, Juan's just like, that is amazing. He's like, I can't even fucking believe what just happened. Your drummer just sat down, said, nope, don't need it. I'll just play the songs, all kinds of time signatures and shit. Really pretty crazy, dude. Photographic memory.
It's yeah, it's some kind of I appreciate that. It's some kind of weird memory skill that I have. I don't know how it developed, but I just am able to remember music very well.
It's
And
probably why you're a very melodic drummer, is the way I like to say it, which sounds like it doesn't make sense, but as in phrasing, I mean, like you're playing the song on drums. You're not just keeping time. And that is you can't teach that.
yeah, again, I don't I appreciate that, and I don't know where it comes from. I just it's somehow developed, and it's cool. It's a cool thing to have, and I'm happy to be able to do stuff like that. And that was a fun it's always it's well for me it's always a very stressful process tracking drums in studios because I want it to be perfect, and I'm really hard on myself. Like, oh, that's not good. I got to redo it, or this is inconsistent. It's uneven. Um, but I always get through it, because I try to be a professional. With this guy Zach, it was crazy. It was like I go in there, I set up the drums. So this guy's he's been engineering for at least a decade with just a countless number of metal bands, and he really, really knows how to record that type of music.
Right.
So I go in there, and he doesn't even flinch. He's like, oh, "Okay, you're just tracking drums today. Okay, cool." He doesn't expect anything. He's like, "Okay, so do you have the clicks?" I go, "Yeah," and I give them to him. He loads them.
Okay,
Uh,
so you like, had a disc with all of them, the click arrangement.
I think Casey. So we programmed all the clicks for the new album on Casey's computer, and I think he emailed them or sent them
Right.
to
Wow.
Zach's personal computer.
Yeah. It's crazy prep, dude, to do progressive music like this. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. So I go in there, and I'm like, tracking drums is always stressful, but I'm gonna do it because. So I go in there, and I start tracking drums for one song, two songs, and then three songs. And at the end of each song, I'm like, I do things in sections, of course. We're not recording live this time. We're doing things in sections like Soul Cinder did. Um, and then there'll be times where I'm like, oh, I kind of screwed this thing up. And he's like, where? And I'm like, right here. Like, I rushed it just a tad, or this is uneven. He's like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, literally 10 seconds later, he's like, play back. And he plays it back, and it's perfect. Like, the amount of drum editing that he did, it was insane. Like, he's like, oh, don't worry about anything. Like, if you rush this, or if you flam this, or you accidentally hit the wrong drum, like, I'll fix all of it. I'm like, okay, sure. And what's really crazy is that he basically mixed the drums that day. Like, I think I had 2 days to track drums. I tracked 4 songs on one day and 3 songs on the second day. Session, we're just sitting in the mixing room, and he's just like whizzing through his computer doing all this stuff, and within like 2 hours or less, all the drums are not only edited, but they're mixed.
Wow.
And then he plays it back to us, and me and Casey and Joe, our jaws are just like dropped. We're like, these are the best sounding drums I've ever been on. I've ever heard of any recording that I've personally ever done.
That's sick, dude. I can't wait to hear. So you know where all the time and research and money is going.
Oh yeah, and then of course, he's just a pro. He's the most professional engineer I've ever worked with.
Dude, is
And
that not the complete opposite to one of our album experiences, or what? Like when we show up one day for our Horribly Human album, and the engineer goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, you guys owe me 2 days worth of money that I did on my own at home." And we're like, "What? What did you do?" "Oh, just this." Pushes play, and he ruined the drums.
oh yeah, he did a lot of weird stuff. I
he
remember that.
he
Yeah.
tried quantizing the whole track with blast beats and double pedal, and then he just walked away from it. Like, no, dude, you got to quantize in patches if you're gonna do it at all, and then you got to surgically fix it. He just thought, I'll hit a preset and charge him for 8 hours because we weren't signed, and he took advantage of us. So we did end up paying for those 2 days where he ruined the quantizing the drums, and then paid another day of us in the studio fixing what he did.
That's right. I remember I had to drive up there. I had to drive up to the studio. It was just a session with me and him, and he's a nice enough guy. But yeah, we I had to like sit there and like we had to go through every song and be like, oh, this is wrong. Move
Yeah,
this, move
you
that.
basically we paid in advance for his mistakes, and then we had to take an extra day in the studio for you to drive up and sit with him, paying money per hour for him to click the undo button.
Yeah.
Fuck.
The other thing that was crazy about Zach was that I like watching him edit drums, and by editing I don't mean like none of the drums on the album are quantized. We all agreed not to do that.
Right.
Because Casey specifically was like, I don't want like that mechanical sound.
It's
like,
not
Roland
necessary. It really isn't. Even if it isn't mechanical, it doesn't matter. If it was played right in the first place, quantizing should be so unnoticeable by the human ear anyway. What the fuck's the point?
Yeah.
Just play right.
Exactly. And I played the tracks as the best I could, but I'm only human. And Zach, he didn't quantize anything, but he would edit drums. So he would get rid of like mic bleed here and crossfade this, and if these 5 snare hits were uneven, he would just literally go in and move the waves just by millimeters. But he did it with such ease and such quickness. I've never seen anything like it. Like if you watch this guy work, you're just like, how do you know that that's going to? He just like moves all this stuff with his mouse, and then he plays back, and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
Fucking A. I think it's just like doing anything else, any other craft or art. Once you do it enough and practice enough, a chemical gets released, and then suddenly you just know how to do it.
Yeah, you develop this neural pathway of just remembering how to do it. It's crazy.
What is your favorite song on the new album?
I think my favorite song off the new album, the thing about it is I'm really happy with pretty much every track. And again, this is one of those albums where it was a little different. When Lars joined the band, he sort of knew that we had a particular chemistry when it came to writing. So all the songs were written by me, Joe, and Casey. And then Lars learned the parts and played them live, and then tracked them on bass in the studio. And so I'm really happy with the riffs I came up with and working with Casey and Joe. I think my 2 favorites on the album are probably, there's a song called Specifically Arnold, and there's a song called well, the title track Zealand is, I think, really, really epic. And
What's the title of the new album?
Zealand.
What is it? Zealand?
Yeah.
As in New
Zealand, yeah.
So just Zealand.
It's just Zealand.
Cool.
It's Roland Zealand.
Roland Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back and listening to Enter the Ronald recently, I really remember what I liked. What I like about Roland and the guys playing, and I've said this to you before, I feel like it's similar to the what I kind of do, a little bit of the kind of what I don't I call it a circular type riff, where it's a pattern that seems to just loop this one circular thing, but the rhythms and whatever the rhythm section is doing underneath this one circular primary riff changes so that you get this fractal pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that shit. It's just entrancing, and you're able to hear seemingly what sounds like the same pattern for 16 measures. You're hearing it change 4 times, if that makes sense. It's something very
Yeah.
Meshuggah-y, that circular thing, and it's very drone and entrancing, and I really dig it. Just I wanted to see if we could give a track or at least half a track from the new album as a teaser.
Yeah, it'd be super down. I think it'd be fun to play. I think you could play a clip of. There's a song called "Public Chefs." The other thing about this new album is that it's way more. As we were writing the songs, Casey and Joe incorporated a lot more effects into their guitar playing, basically more pedal effects,
Cool.
and the songs are a little bit slower and not to the point where it's sludgy, but just groovier and slower and more deliberate, and it's more spacey sort of psychedelic parts, I suppose. A lot of really interesting pedal work. But the other thing I was going to tell you was that if you listen to, I was going to give you some background on the influence behind, well, really the both albums, which was
Great.
all of the material is written, like I said, by me, Joe, and Casey. And if you listen to those songs, Casey, for example, he's heavily influenced in terms of writing and playing by Tool, Meshuggah, um, and bands like the Melvins and stuff like that. And then Joe, he likes metal stuff. He likes Meshuggah and stuff like that. But he's actually heavily influenced by like 80s new wave, like Joy
Nice.
Division and Tears for Fears and stuff like that. So
Oh
he does a
fuck
lot.
yes, dude. Yes, I
Yeah,
can kind of fucking hear that because they had those winning droplets of notes on the guitars and stuff.
yeah, he's really into stuff like that.
Right.
And of course, me, like a lot of the, because of my metal influence, a lot of the really heavy, like almost breakdown kind of stuff was usually my idea that we would try to carefully place into parts of these songs where it was appropriate. So a lot of the heavier stuff was like my influence, I suppose.
All right, interesting. And let me ask this because there's the decision you guys have made to become and stay an instrumental band, no vocals. Was that probably talked about initially, even when Roland was in the group? Like, let's just do instrumental because I know he was a fan of instrumental groups.
Yeah, it's interesting because for a while we just decided to do that, even when Roland left, and it was just me and Casey and Joe and Lars. And we thought, well, there's enough going on with the guitars to keep people's attention and things like that. But it was talked about a little while later. In fact, Joe was the one that recently came up with the idea of wanting to add vocals, possibly add vocals on the new album. And I was sort of, I was kind of in, I was kind of neutral about it. I was like, we could do it or we couldn't. Either way, it's fine.
Right.
And I remember Casey and Lars both being like, no, 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 like vocals are a it's a delicate subject, and it could ruin an album or it could make an album better, but they don't want to take the chance.
It's so true, dude. It really is a commitment to the point of absolutely changing the face of the entire project. It just
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
It's something about that where staying instrumental, it really, your demographic gets locked in. Like sometimes you might be able to grab somebody in a general setting, yes, especially live. Live is sort of a whole different tamale of its own. Like you
Mm-hmm.
get an experience with your band live. Um, but something memorable to just the general people, like it's unfortunate. You just can't escape genres. You can't escape cliques and groups, and people need sort of something to define to them what is it, and is it okay for me to like it? And it's shitty. I hate it, but once you put in vocals, you are basically going, okay, define us, vocalist. What are we? And it sucks, but
Yeah.
that's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that all that stuff aside, finding the right singer to fucking do something that will even be noticeable, that's just a whole other fucking conversation. And I don't know, it's something about an instrumental rock or progressive group or metal group, it stays in the cosmos when you do that. it
Sure.
lives it lives in that place that music lives, where you can't describe it in words. None of us can.
Sure.
We've danced since we're babies. No one can explain why. It's inborn. As soon as you add a human voice to humanize it, and language and subject topics matter, whatever lyrical, you're grounding it. You're taking it out of the stars and you're ground. All right, I've had a couple to drink. I'm gonna pour another.
It's fine.
You know what I mean?
I
So
understand.
the choice to keep it instrumental keeps it cosmic.
Oh, for sure. It's well. What's interesting is that we decided to keep the album instrumental, and but I think because there's a couple things that have changed. Sorry, I just had to take a drink of water. There's a
That's right. I
couple
can hear
things.
you. I can hear you pretty well now. Just keep your mouth right there. Keep your
Okay,
mouth right there, bitch. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
there's a couple things that have changed since the making of the album. One that Casey actually recently decided to leave the band for a couple different reasons. One of them being him and his wife are moving away. They're moving to Southern California, and he just won't have time for it anymore. He wants to focus on a career and maybe having kids and things like that, which I totally respect.
Mhm.
And the same thing for Lars. Lars also bowed out respectfully because um, some family issues, health issues, and also um, his work. He's a career guy, and his job is very demanding, and he just can't put the time in anymore. But
Understood.
now it's just me and Joe. Well, not anymore. I'll get to that in a minute. But um, it was Joe's idea initially to bring vocals into the band, and of course it was met with a little bit of resistance from Casey and Lars. And like I said before, I was neutral about it. But now that now that Casey and Lars are out of the band, it might be something that could happen in the future if we do decide to record more material, because I think you'll be happy to know that we actually, I don't know, but we've, at least for now, have recruited Sam to play bass for us.
All right.
Yeah, Sam's in.
Fuck yeah.
And then, yeah, and then we got, for those of you listening, Sam was the last bass player of Solus under me and Chaz's old band. And
Sam's
and then
a
we got
sure
Wink.
thing, dude.
Yeah, and then Wink is gonna play guitar. He's gonna cover for Casey's parts.
I never met the guy, but I heard so he's back.
He is back. He had some issues, he had some personal things going on, and he's back in the scene, working things out and wanting to play music. And again, for those of you listening, Wink is he played guitar for Ontogeny for a little while. He's also old friends with Sam. Him and Sam go way back.
And he's also the one on the milk carton missing persons in the ontogeny video, which I guess
That's
somebody
right.
dialed the number and he was found. God bless America.
So it's exciting. We're actually going to be. The funny thing is that Joe also moved away. He moved to Portland, but he wanted to keep it going as did I. So we're keeping it going, and I went ahead and took the initiative to recruit Sam and Wink to play bass and second guitar, and they've been learning the songs. I've been working with Wink on the songs. Sam has already learned all of them, which is great. And we're going to start. Joe's going to fly down, maybe even tomorrow, I think. And on Wednesday, we're going to have our first rehearsal with the new lineup with Casey, with Joe and Wink and Sam. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that.
That is awesome. And yes, we're going to play a track off of Roland's new album, Zealand, right now. We're going to give you a little taste of it. So check this shit out. And remember that you could always, their first album, Enter the Ronald, is available on Bandcamp. We'll have a link for that.
Yeah, and I would say to listeners, just keep an eye on the Bandcamp, and eventually we're going to upload the second album. It's just we're working on like promotion and proper release.
Excellent. Very cool. Very cool. And so, all right. Well, when the new album is out, we'll have a whole other episode to give a take on that, so people can hear that stuff for sure. And man, it would be great to hear some or see some live video with Sam on board. It would be killer when it's ready.
Yeah, we're talking about. Well, me and Joe really want to do at least a regional tour if we can get the right promo and everything else, and hopefully do some shows soon. And yeah, Sam will be there with us at least for a little while, playing bass with us. It's gonna be great.
Hell yeah, dude. And all right, well, I've got some other things I wanted to talk about musically, but we'll wait for another episode so we don't take fucking too long. But let's go ahead and move on toward the end. You were just in Canada.
That's right.
How was that?
Canada was it was crazy because Well, it wasn't crazy, but it was an amazing place. Canada is huge, by the way. Canada is as big as the United States, if not bigger, by land volume.
Uh-huh.
So it's a big place. But I was on the West Coast in Vancouver, and I'd always wanted to go because I heard it was beautiful. My dad, I remember he described it as like the Lake Tahoe of the Lake Tahoe by the sea, and that is kind of what it's like. So I flew up there, just take a small vacation.
Are people as nice as the stereotype says?
Yeah, people, everyone's nice. I mean, I didn't. Um, it's very similar because it's really close to Seattle. Culturally, it's pretty much the same as any other West Coast city, I would say. Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, um, because of the proximity. Um, it's the same language, it's the same accent, it's the
But
same
did you
everything. Really,
Did you meet any French Canadians? What is it about French people that I swear I talked to a couple French people and it's almost like they don't know their own language. You know what I mean? Even with they speak it, but they're always like, "Je suis avec me." Spit it out, dude.
oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the stuttering. I actually didn't meet any French Canadians, but it's interesting because at the airport everything is written in English and French. But when you're in the city, it's a really beautiful city. It's very clean. These big glass skyscrapers everywhere, and it's kind of a it has a good nightlife. There's lots of fun things to do at night, lots of bars and amazing restaurants.
Oh, I saw
There's a
you
huge
post a video of some jazz players, man. So you saw some live.
oh, that was actually in San Francisco.
Oh,
Yeah, which is
all right. Well,
great. But
no. Speaking of
Vancouver,
jazz, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say Vancouver was amazing because I ended up doing a lot of nature things. Vancouver's a great place for doing nature things. There's mountains, there's these giant, basically a mountain range surrounding the city, and it's just if you're into skiing or hiking or anything like that, that's the place to go because it's the scenery is just breathtaking up there. It's really crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, you're always into the traveling a little more than I am. I think I always just want to play music where I travel, so that's not in the cards lately. You know, I haven't really touched an instrument in over 6 months.
Really, not even the guitar.
No, or my keyboard. It's just been collecting dust in the corner, and that's a whole conversation I wanted to have with you on the next episode, maybe. I'm not even going to get into it, except to say a neutral person, acquaintance of mine and yours, I asked to be on the podcast, and his answer was very discouraging. And how,
Uh,
like, oh, you guys don't have enough listeners. It's not worth my time. And then he just didn't realize how shitty of a person I am actually capable of being.
he,
Because I went off on, but you know what? He said he might join the podcast later just to read each other's awful emails back and forth and embarrass myself. I don't think he'll be embarrassed, but I don't know. What I wanted to land on was it started to make me think, what is the measure of a musician? And this is something I was like telling him, like, oh, we don't got enough listeners. You're so fucking more important than us. You know, I'm paraphrasing. You're such a big famous. Yeah, well, good luck with Frankie Sharp Records, dude. This is literally what I'm saying. Like,
oh, you
he
mean
did not know how petty I can be, which I can laugh at it now. But it made me start thinking, you know what? What is the measure of a musician? I haven't had an audience in so long that I don't even touch my instruments anymore. Am I that? Was that a little bit of reflecting on myself? And do I need constant uh, validation from anonymous admirers in order for me to call myself a musician? I haven't had an audience. I haven't had a stage. Does that mean I should just quit?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Here, all right. You know what? I was going to save it for next episode, but this won't take long. This is an interesting question that I've asked a lot. I used to run an open mic and have an opportunity to talk to a lot of musicians. And I had a couple. There's two parts to this question, and it's really honest. At least I try to be honest with it. Let's start with the first one. Made up hypothetical scenario. You're a musician, right? You've got your whole career behind you. You're in a plane crash. You land on a deserted island, right? Just all
Mm-hmm.
hypothetical. Let's say you had all things required for compatibility for a guitar. The one thing that survived on this deserted island was plenty of food, an acoustic guitar, and a lifetime supply of guitar strings, let's just say, okay? Now, you know you would
Mm-hmm.
never, ever come in contact with another human being. You're going to die alone on this deserted island like Castaway.
Yeah, except
Right.
Castaway it got away. But I,
Would you even bother picking up that guitar?
are you
Yeah,
asking me? Absolutely, because I'm somebody who does love to perform and share performance with people. But I do get a joy out of playing for myself, like make playing for myself and making music
right.
makes me
Yeah, it
happy.
is.
So I would
And
definitely
it is. It
prefer.
is a complete. And I've seen. I've read articles that were sent to me about how uh, music playing a musical instrument is actually medicinal. It's similar to when you're petting a kitten. You know, your blood pressure goes down. Also, it's so stimulating neurologically. It can help. It can help with dementia to prevent getting Alzheimer's. Learning how to play an instrument. This is statistically proven. So there's
Yeah.
tons of ways. I get it that it's, you know, but I still just feel like I don't know if what am I going to do? Write a whole album that will never be heard again by human ears except me? I feel like there's a second part to that playing of an instrument that it, I don't know, man. I because I'm on the other end of my same question. I
Well,
haven't played music for people in so long, but I can literally like if I get the hankering, like man, maybe I want to play guitar. I can go take a glance at the corner of my room and look at my acoustic guitar and just have a little flashback of all of my songs that are in me and go, all right, that was a good session, and then just continue on the computer. Like,
I think that the second question is more difficult to answer because you have to consider a few things. For example, do you still get joy out of hearing the instrument or trying to come up with something new? Do you get joy out of discovering things and exploring music through the instrument, or do you get joy out of completing something just for
that's for
yourself? For
myself.
example, like do you enjoy if you were to pick up the guitar right now, blank blank slate, and just try to write something? Would you get joy out
Okay,
of
the
that?
answer has two parts. That's the thing. It is not just a straight answer. Of course, yes, but my first, where does that adrenaline go? My next thought is I've got to record this, at least a demo, so that I can remember for later and actually add to it. Then, of course, it goes to I can't wait to show my peers, meaning you, Nate, Brian Reese, it's just how it goes. And then eventually it's ready for publication. And that's only because that's been me my whole career. I've been either in a home studio, a real studio, or on stage or in a practice space as a goal towards something. And I don't know, maybe that's just because I've done a lot of musically professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiled is not the right word. That's kind of pretentious. I'll just say I'm more conditioned to prepping this as a rehearsal for something. I feel like I've left the just jamming behind, which is not good either. I can admit that. I've actually had a discussion with Nate about this with our old group Solus Under. If you listen to the actual music, and I know you can agree with this because you've been there since the beginning. If you listen to the
Mm-hmm.
first music Solus Under created, it was all about the music. It was breaking rules, bending rules, pushing boundaries musically. Then, after we finally got that material on stage for a little while, a couple years, I think noticeably my writing style changed to where I stopped being so what's the word, progressive in the writing, or I stopped pushing boundaries as much as basically I started.
You
Go
stopped.
ahead.
You stopped being. You became less adventurous and more pragmatic.
Yes, I less adventurous because you know what it was? It was an addiction of feeling crowd response. For our first year with Solo Sunder playing that first material, anytime there was a big breakdown, yes, I'm saying breakdown, and I know it's going to get misconstrued and making, oh, you metalcore. Shut up. Slayer had breakdowns. Okay, breakdown. Sepultura had breakdowns. They've been around forever. So yes, I'm saying breakdown. But you know what I mean? That moment where the ball drops and the crowd goes, ugh, I started getting addicted to that feedback from the audience. So you started hearing less less stuff going on in the riffs and a little bit more of a chance for the song to open up for the audience to, okay, here's your chance to mosh. You know what I mean? And it sounds like selling out. It really does. But it became a feeling I got addicted to. It was like, I got less out of my own head and more of a connection with what the crowd wanted. I'm the victim of it.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you enjoyed making other people happy. It made you feel good. I think that's totally fine.
But you see what I mean, though, right? I mean, without trying to sound too, I don't know. It's just that's where my mind goes. Is I think you can noticeably hear the difference, like you, because I know you know our music.
It's you had a passion to. Oh, sorry, my phone's getting weird. You had a passion to entertain.
Yeah,
you became an entertainer more than an artist, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think if you were to be dropped on a desert island, I've seen you mess around on instruments. I've seen you mess around on piano, and I can see it in your face when you hit something that was unexpected. You get so stoked about it, and then you try to build on it, and you have fun doing it. I've seen it hundreds of times. So I don't think that. I think that you might think that ember has that flame is burnt out, but I don't think it has. I think it's still there, and I think if you were to sit down at the piano or the guitar and just start playing random things, you'll stumble upon something that makes you feel excited, and you'll want to build on it just for yourself.
just for my.
I think it's still there.
Well, right on, dude. Yeah, you're probably right. I there's no sense in fucking overanalyzing it. It's just I miss the stage. That's why I'm thinking about it more. I definitely do miss the stage. I feel like I'm drying up.
Hello?
Yeah, I just say I feel like I'm drying up.
Oh yeah, you're like a tree that needs water, and that water is the stage.
Fucking A, dude. All right. Well, dude, well, good. I'm glad I brought it up, and we'll expound more on this down the road. So let's get toward the very end here. We're going to wrap up with, you recommended to me, you wanted me to go back and listen to The Contortionist. let's go ahead and let's let you start. Why don't you go ahead and give us a review of this album?
When it came out, I really, really, it's everything that. Well, let's see. So the Contortionist has put out, I think, 4 or 5 albums at this point, and I didn't get into them until their third album, which is called Language. And Language and Clairvoyant, the album that came after, they both they both grew on me. At first, I was like, "This is cool, that's cool." Overall, I'm not sure. But the more I listened to each of them, the more I fell in love with them, the ideas, and starting to notice more interesting things about how the songs were written, clever ways of getting around the production, and then of course the singer's voice, who again grew on me. So and lots of really interesting ideas. And I think Clairvoyant is a little bit more of a rock album, whereas the Language is a little bit more of a progressive metal album. So they're two very different albums, but Clairvoyant is more emotional sounding, which I enjoy. I like that kind of music, emotionally charged music. And I really enjoyed the vocal phrasing, the melodies, the guitar tones. The tones on that album are beautiful. It's a little bit more subdued of an album. Like I said, it's not so metal. It's mostly like mellow rock stuff. But I think it's beautifully executed, and I think they go into really interesting places melodically. They drop you into these weird places that are kind of unfamiliar, but pretty at the same time, which I really like. I've always liked stuff like that. It's a good album for people who are into like post rock or progressive rock, but not like 70s progressive, like modern progressive rock. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's kind of interesting. I'm listening to your review, and I got to be honest. I'm sort of fishing for a little something that I can apply to my review, but you didn't help me at all. But the reason is, as I'm listening to you, is because it's hard to really to fucking categorize this group. You really kind of nailed it in your last comment there, where it's like, yes, it's progressive rock, but not anything like Yes or 70s progressive rock. In fact, it's almost as if you could, and this is going to sound terrible, but what if you took Linkin Park production and vibe and made it good?
I know what you mean.
Like that's so far removed from 70s progressive rock as far as what it sounds like. But give them that actual passion and essence in a Linkin Park sort of production. And that's kind of what this is, which I was really into. I'm like, you know what? I like Linkin Park's the worst thing. I don't even know. I just forget I even said that. Let me just start over.
It's fine.
I can't think of a band though. They've got a radio quality. The singer, okay, safe is the word I'll use. He's very soft, very safe, but that's good because that means, once you're invested in this album, Clairvoyant, you can guarantee, you can be confident that there's not going to be anything that's going to jump out and stab you like weird sounding. It's very contained and produced and safe and soft. I would say the vocals almost work as another accompaniment more than a lead.
Interesting. I could hear that. Yeah.
I feel like the lead is just the vibe itself, and it's hard to really even explain. But this is like a fucking. It's like an opus. It's like a sci-fi movie soundtrack, but in a band form.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really different than Language. Language, or is it Language or Languages?
Oh, just Language.
That shit, let me tell you right now, Keith showed me that album back in like 2013 or something. It made me like metal again. I stopped listening to metal, but then he showed me that album. I was like, dude, I have never heard so many correct decisions in so long. Like every move is a right one. And in the middle of the gent world, they stand out, even though I wouldn't even call them gent. They're their own thing. They're a guitar adventure. and everything else
Absolutely.
around it really supports that. So especially clairvoyant, if you're ready for a mood, boy, the word is mood for this.
Yeah, I would describe that album as being. You're right. It's the mood is the. They've successfully made it so that the album. Let me rephrase that. They've successfully made it so that the mood is the at the forefront of this album. It's like
Yeah,
the whole. It's like all the music is just coated in like pale purple paint or something. I don't know.
I know, man. It's almost like a film vibe. It's like they've got this whole production behind them going, okay, this train is gonna go and it ain't gonna stop till it gets to its destination. By the end of the album, you're like, damn, nothing jumped out, but it all was facilitating this mood. It's so fucking hard to explain, but it's great a band can do that. These are young guys and
Yeah.
very fucking very they do whatever they want. That much is clear.
Oh yeah. They're in it for personal
Art.
reasons and just for the art. Exactly. Yeah.
And the production's beautiful. I remember you telling me while we were recording our last album, IDSF Coming Home, you were telling me production wise, like the way the guitars are balanced and mixed and just some of the tones of the dirtiness versus the cleans. I think you were saying that was a big inspiration for the direction you went for our album. And I can hear that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's the some of the tones are so rich. I don't know how to describe them, but they're just rich in color or something.
Fuck yeah. And where are they from?
They're from like the Midwest, like Minnesota or something.
Right.
Yeah,
Fuck
they're
yeah.
they're Americans. Yeah,
American. All right, dude. Well, fuck yeah. Excellent. And good to chat with you again. We're going to be in touch.
of course.
And yeah, dude, this was fucking awesome. And looking forward to hearing the new Roland full length. Tell Sam I said what up tomorrow. And we will catch you soon.
Yeah, and yeah, that was a great conversation. And I'd like to note that the timing is actually perfect because I have 1% battery on my phone.
Fuck yeah. So let's just sit here in silence until it's done. Ready? No, just
Yeah.
kidding. All right, guys. Late.
Peace.